I was fired from the company where I had worked for 20 years because the boss's wife was so jealous. What kind of woman would steal someone else's work because she couldn't trust her marriage? The question lingered in my head. I wasn't even allowed to sit down. "It's nothing personal," she said, smoothing out her silk blouse and sitting down in the CEO's chair as if it belonged to her. The door slammed behind me, and there she was, his wife, smiling with a sardonic smile that made my teeth ache. Between us lay a folder, a dismissal package. "Paul values your contributions," she continued, "but he needs to protect the company and his reputation." Her wedding ring glinted in the reflection of the windows. Protect him from what? From me? From my late-night emergency calls? From the fact that after 20 years, every client trusted me more than anyone else in this company? I swallowed. "So it's a reputational decision," I said, feeling the blood drain from my hands. Her smile didn't waver. "You've become irreplaceable. It creates the wrong impression. Competition." There it was. Not budget cuts, not restructuring, jealousy. It was simple female jealousy. She dragged the folder across the glossy desk with 2 fingers. "You'll get a fair package." "Fair," I repeated. "Very fair." In the reflection of the glass wall, I could see the team pretending not to look. My office plant and all my things were packed in boxes. She took my silence for capitulation. "Will you sign now? Or will you hesitate?" she said softly. "And the IT guy will take your laptop. We'll announce your retirement so we can focus on your family." She was careful with her wording. Retirement, family. I thought about the clients whose children I'd met, the vacations I'd postponed, the Saturday mornings I'd spent tackling the cases that had been thrust upon me. I thought about Paul leaning against my doorframe in the twilight, asking, "Can you do another miracle?" As if it were a joke between us. Instead, I nodded. My voice was even. "Sure. Send me the paperwork." I reached for the folder. Her relief was instant, awkward. She exhaled. She even patted my hand. In that moment, I knew I was going to be okay. I didn't need his name to carry my life. I had something she couldn't put on par with their company, a reputation that belonged to me. When you're keeping secrets at 2 a.m. and solving disasters before dawn, you begin to understand exactly where the real levers are and who will follow you when you're gone. I walked out with a cardboard box and my mother's cardigan slung over my arm. In the elevator, my hands finally began to shake. And yet, underneath the trembling, there was something warm and iron. If she'd wanted to make me small, she'd underestimated the magnitude of my silence. But to understand how, that first call turned into an avalanche, I have to go back to the very beginning. I started at the company when my hair was more brown than gray, long before the logo changed and the lobby smelled of eucalyptus. I knew where every contract was, which client preferred calls to emails, how to translate Paul's promises into deadlines that never got missed. Efficiency is a love language. Mine. Anyway, I stayed up late, reading footnotes, memorizing the names of administrators and drivers, because they were the ones who made the world go round. That's how I met his wife. At a gala where the lights made everyone look expensive, she was wearing a dress that could have cut the room. "You're the woman who keeps my husband from drowning," she said, and I laughed because I still thought it was a compliment. Over the years, she appointed herself the custodian of what she called the brand. She'd drop in on staff meetings and adjust the order of slides. She'd butt into committees where her presence was completely unnecessary. She was a shadow of his position, and she didn't like the way he leaned toward me when the real work required faith. It escalated quietly. Jealousy often does. A comment about my jacket being a little ambitious. A smile that didn't reach her eyes when a client praised me. The way she began referring to me as dear during tense moments. "Sit this one out, dear. Let the leadership team handle it, dear." The way she began posting photos online of her and Paul at dinners with my clients as if photographing the scene could prove ownership of the relationship. Then came the rumor. The day I heard there were whispers about propriety, I was packing sample decks for a pitch in Chicago. I felt heat rush to my face, not the blush of guilt, but the sting of insult. I have a granddaughter who calls me Nana and combs my hair with a pink brush while I read invoices. I am 68 and precise. I do not flirt with bosses. I course correct them. At first, I tried to ignore it. Work is the best solvent I know. But then the wife stepped fully into the light. She requested my calendar. She rerouted a flight I'd booked with points I'd earned, then sent an email from Paul's account. We'll have you focus on internal projects for a while. Rest. You've earned it. Rest, I told my reflection in the bathroom mirror, and the word curled like paper over a flame. That week, a client of 10 years called me directly. Are you still on our business? She asked, wary. Of course, I answered. Until you hear otherwise from me. 2 days later, I was in that conference room with the pink folder. When I got home, I put the box on the kitchen table and fed the cat. I opened the window. The late sun softened the edges of everything. I brewed tea and sat with the folder. I read the non-compete clause twice, then a third time aloud, because ears catch what eyes forgive. It was too broad, written by someone who assumed fear would fill the gaps. I called a lawyer I trusted, a friend of a friend whose business card I'd once slipped into my wallet for no particular reason. I explained, he listened, then he said, "You've been careful your whole life. Keep being careful, don't solicit, don't touch a file that isn't yours, build something from air and ability. If they come to you, that's their choice." I understand, I said, and I did. I could be patient. I could be so patient. The next morning, I woke before dawn and wrote a white paper I'd been thinking about for months, an analysis of an upcoming regulatory change and what it meant for mid-market clients. I wrote it like a letter to a friend. Do these 3 things now, avoid these 2 traps, call your bank before they call you. I didn't mention the company. I didn't name a single client. I put it on a clean website with my name and a modest contact page. I sent the link to no one. I did, however, post it on a professional forum where I had been answering strangers' questions for years. Here are my thoughts, I wrote. Happy to discuss. My inbox filled slowly, like a tide. The first email was from a client's junior manager. This is exactly what we've been asking for internally, he wrote. Our leadership keeps promising a plan. Could we schedule a call? I checked my contract, no solicitation. A call isn't a promise. I replied with a calendar link and no sales pitch. He brought his director, they brought their CFO. We spoke for an hour and a half without talking about the past. At the end, the CFO, a measured man in his 70s, who spoke in clauses weighed like gold, said, "If we were to engage an independent advisor, would you have capacity?" I would, I said calmly, though my heart thudded once against my ribs hard enough to make me lightheaded. Send terms you find fair. I'll have counsel review them. And the contract arrived that afternoon. No conflict with the non-compete. They came to me, I didn't go to them. We agreed we would work on strategy, not execution. I filed the signed copy in a folder labeled Beginning. On the second day, a different client forwarded my white paper to me with a line that made me smile. "Did you see this? It sounds like your brain," I wrote back. I did. "I can recommend 3 actions to discuss with your account team." I added a polite sentence. "If you'd like an independent view, here's how I'd structure it." I signed with my name and my new email address. Again, they asked for a call. Again, they hired me. By the end of the week, I had 3 clients, each distinct. I didn't touch a file from my old job. I opened a bank account and chose a name that made me feel solid. I ordered business cards because I am old-fashioned, and handing someone your name in weighty paper still means something. Paul called on a Sunday night. I knew his voice without looking at the screen. "We need to talk," he said. "What about?" I stood by the sink and watched a raccoon explore the backyard like an inspector. "You've put us in a difficult position." "I've honored your agreement," I said. "I've solicited no one." He paused. "You know what I mean. I only know what I've signed and what I haven't." His voice softened, the way he used to speak when a project was bleeding out. "We can make this right if you come back. Let's put this behind us. Name your title." The temptation flickered and died. I didn't leave, I said. I was escorted out of a room where your wife had already written my goodbye. It's more complicated than that. No, I said. It isn't. Sandra, he said finally, she's worried there were appearances. I've been married. I know what a marriage needs. It isn't a scalp, he exhaled. You were always blunt? Accurate, I corrected. After we hung up, I microwaved leftover soup and felt my age settle in my bones in a kind of comfort. There are advantages to being this seasoned. You don't confuse an apology for redirection. You don't confuse a flattering offer for safety. The wife didn't call. She posted a photo of herself at a ribbon cutting instead, a caption about legacy and vision. I scrolled past. My granddaughter called to ask if she could bring over a collage from school. It's for your office, she said, and my throat tightened. I'd like that, I told her. My office has a very tasteful cat. It was the husband of a different client who gave me the first real twist. He was a union man with hands like anchors and a smile that showed he fixed his own fences. He said, "They're telling people you were let go for cause." For cause? I repeated and had to sit down. Something about confidentiality. They're hinting you took files? He paused. Did you? No, I said. I took a plant and my mother's cardigan. He cleared his throat. Then they're trying to close a door that's already open. He lowered his voice. They've hired a private investigator to watch your meetings. I believed him because suspicion always drips from the ceiling when there's a fire people don't want to face. I thanked him. Then I called my lawyer again. He sighed, the sigh of a man who keeps a chair permanently reserved for other people's storms. Document everything, he said. Don't change your routine in fear. And remember, lies are a kind of confession. 2 weeks in, my clients started whispering the same thing. The service had slipped. Response times lagged, reports arrived with typos, invoices didn't match quotes. The wife had inserted herself into operations. She had opinions about fonts and folder names, and when people were too polite to tell her no, she declared victory and broke things by rearranging them. People underestimate the quiet damage of control for its own sake. It unplugs small machines. No one thinks to check. I didn't gloat. I worked. I sent my clients deliverables on time and with fewer slides. I told the truth. This will be hard for 3 weeks and then easier than you can imagine. They believed me because I'd never raised my voice and I'd never missed a deadline. By month 2, the board called Paul into a room without glass walls. He emerged pale. He called me the next day. We're restructuring, he said. We'd like you to lead a transition unit as a contractor. Who will I report to? I asked, though I knew. He hesitated. To my office. Which is to say, I replied, to your wife. This is how we move forward, ma son, he said, and I could hear the defeat he was trying to perfume. No, I said. This is how you circle a drain. Sandra, he said, unexpected tenderness in the syllables. Don't do this. Do what? Win the way you're winning. I looked out the window. The first leaves were turning. I'm not winning, I said. I'm doing my job. The winning is a side effect of not lying to people. Now, there's a point at which men our age stop pretending that anything is new. He heard it. He went quiet. Then he said, softly, she thought I was in love with you. I'm in love with clean spreadsheets and invoices that match, I said, because a joke is a safe harbor even when it's not a joke. He laughed then, a sound like a cough. Maybe that's what scared her. 3 months in, a client asked me to pitch against my old company for a large RFP. Are you comfortable? They asked, careful as surgeons with their words. I am, if you are, I said, and I won't reference my former employer. I will reference, numbers. The RFP was brutal in the way only a clean request can be. The wife sent a glossy proposal that glittered with adjectives. Mine was 20 pages shorter. It included a schedule of what would happen if anything went wrong. We presented back to back. When I walked in, the wife was still there, arranging her pages as if the arrangement mattered. She wore victory like perfume. Did you bring a team? She asked, looking around me. No, I said. Just the work. The committee asked questions. I answered them. At the end, the oldest board member, a woman in her 70s with a red scarf wound around her neck like authority itself, said, "If we call your references, what will they say you do when you make a mistake?" "I name it," I said. "Then I fix it." She nodded once, as if that answer matched something she knew from another life. 2 days later, they awarded me the contract. It was public. The wife posted a note about healthy competition. Then she sent me a text that began with congratulations and ended with a threat disguised as concern. "Be careful how you use confidential knowledge." I typed and deleted 3 responses before leaving the message unanswered. I didn't have to prove what I hadn't done. The next twist came not from her, but from a spreadsheet I couldn't stop thinking about. A vendor asked me to confirm terms on a retainer I'd negotiated 2 years prior. The numbers didn't match what I remembered. I shrugged it off. Memory is a tricky archive, until it happened again with a different vendor. Then a third, always a small difference, always in their favor. I asked a junior analyst I trusted to look at public filings and cross-reference a few things. "Don't touch anything internal," I told him. "Assume you know nothing that you can't find in the public square." He called me on a Tuesday. "There's a pattern," he said, excitement and worry braided into his voice. "They're booking revenue early, and they've been categorizing personal expenses as development costs." I sat very still. "How sure are you?" "Sure enough to put it in writing," he said. "Don't," I said quickly. "Not yet." "Not to me," I called my lawyer. He didn't sigh this time. He asked me for names and dates. "You are not a whistleblower," he said. "You are a citizen with eyes. If the board asks you for help, you can direct them to the public trail. Do not become the story I slept badly that night." At dawn, I wrote a letter to myself about why we don't take shortcuts, about the particular relief of unrolling a rug and finding nothing hidden under it except clean floor. I made oatmeal, ate half, fed the rest to the cat, who prefers brown food and sauces but will eat anything if I tell him it is special. By noon, the board called. Not the full board, the chairwoman with the red scarf. Her voice was a steady river. "We have questions you might be able to help us answer." I told her only what anyone with a laptop could see. I pointed. I did not accuse. She listened like a person taking notes on the inside of her eyelids. When I finished, she thanked me and said, "If we ask you to put that in a memo, would you?" "Yes," I said, "if I can cite sources only." "That would be best." The wife must have sensed the shift. She wrote me an email so polite it squeaked, proposing a strategic partnership. She suggested the optics would be better if we aligned. "We both care about excellence," she wrote. "We should demonstrate solidarity as female leaders." I set my hands on the keyboard and anchored them there until the impulse to reply vanished. I forwarded the message to my lawyer with a single line, no response. 2 weeks later, Paul resigned to spend more time with his family. The press releases were tasteful. The wife posted a photo of a beach with a quote about new chapters. People commented hearts. I turned off my phone and went for a walk in the park where the ducks line up like an old-fashioned parade. I thought about the years and the late nights and the small pleasure of sending a clean document at 11:59 p.m. and the way it felt today to be a tiny company with 6 clients who slept better because I told them the truth. When I came home, there was a bouquet on my porch, peonies and eucalyptus. No note. I carried them into the kitchen and put them in a vase that had been my mother's. My granddaughter's collage hung over the desk, magazine cutouts of mountains and a hiking boot, and the word onward in uneven letters. I hired 2 people that month. Women my age who had been told, gently and with smiley faces, that they should consider slowing down. One had left a marriage that had shrunk her. The other had been an executive assistant who knew how to do everything and had never been allowed to call it thinking. I asked them for their rates. They named numbers smaller than they deserved. I doubled them and said, "Don't thank me. This is market." We ran our little company like a well-lit kitchen, everything labeled, everything reachable. We had a rule about emails, under 3 paragraphs, or we pick up the phone. We had a rule about weekends. They are not for remorse. We had a rule about mistakes. Name them by Tuesday. Clients came without us to chase. Some brought their entire budget. Some brought their headaches. All brought relief with their belief. I slept like a person who had been forgiven by nobody because forgiveness wasn't needed. I did see the wife once more. It was at a conference where the bathrooms had couches and the pastries crunched the way good sugar does. She stopped me in the hall as if we were friends. "You look well," she said, and envy twisted the compliment into a blade. "I walk a lot," I said. "It helps." "I wanted to clear the air," she said. "I hope you don't have any hard feelings." I looked at her face and saw the exhaustion you can't cover with a serum. "I don't," I said. "I have a business to run. The air's fine. You know, people move on," she said lightly. "It's better not to dwell." "I don't dwell," I said. "I build." She flinched. It was small, but it was there. "You've been very lucky," she said. "I have been very precise," I corrected, and walked past her into a room where I knew the names of the microphones and how to fix a projector when someone uses the wrong dongle. Luck had nothing to do with what happened next. One of my clients, a cautious man in his 50s, whose shirts looked ironed even before they were, introduced me to a partner at a firm that had never once called me back when I'd worn my old badge. "She'll give you the thing you keep trying to buy," he said, and they did, and she did. A retainer for 3 years that gave us enough cash to hire a benefits consultant and pay for dental. On the anniversary of the pink folder, I baked a lemon cake. I invited the 2 women I'd hired and the junior analyst and his husband and their neighbor who fixed computers and liked chess. We sat around my table and ate cake, and I told them the story of how a woman tried to make me small and accidentally measured my walls for a bigger life. We toasted with sparkling water because 2 of us were on medication that didn't like bubbles. We laughed. We sent each other home with slices wrapped in wax paper because plastic wrap always sticks to the frosting. Later, when the house was quiet and the cat had claimed a chair like a conquering general, I opened a drawer and took out the termination packet. I smoothed its edges, which were already softening with time. I put it back. How do you destroy someone who tried to erase you? You don't? You build something in the space they cleared for your absence. You become so useful, your name turns into a verb other people say when they want something to work. Months later, a last twist. A junior from my old company called me from a number I didn't recognize. "I shouldn't be doing this," she said, breathless. "But I can't watch it anymore." She's cutting staff. They're calling it optimization. They demanded our laptops at 9 p.m. on a Friday. The severance letters are dated 2 weeks ago. "I'm sorry," I said, and I was because no victory tastes right salted with strangers' losses. "Do you have openings?" she asked. "Not today," I said truthfully. "But send me your resume. And if you need a reference, I will tell anyone who asks that the work with your initials on it was always clean." She cried a little then. I listened. Sometimes the best you can do is witness the size of someone's fear without trying to paper over it. I hung up and went to the window. It had started to snow, the kind that erases edges and turns the street into a single lane of patience. I thought of the wife and of the life she had tried to defend with her claws out. I wasn't angry anymore. There are better fuels than rage. Pride is one, craft is another. When spring came, a client sent me a photo of their team at a picnic. "We had a good quarter," the caption said. "Your plan worked." I looked at the faces, some young, some my age, low folding chairs and paper plates and a dog and a handkerchief. That a spreadsheet and a few honest conversations can translate into laughter in a park is a kind of alchemy. It's my favorite kind. There are days when I pass our old office and catch my reflection in the glass. My hair is silver now, in a way it wasn't before. I stop sometimes and adjust the scarf my granddaughter picked out. Bright green with tiny foxes. I remember the first time I entered that building, the feeling that I could become a person who mattered if I learned the rules and then learned where they were unhelpful. I did. Then I left. An investor invited me to scale, a word that always makes me picture a fish on a cutting board. I said no. I wanted a company the size of a kitchen table, exactly enough chairs for the people I trust, exactly enough plates. We grew anyway, but deliberately. We adopted another rule: never hire for a contract, hire for a life. If we can't feed you after this project, we won't invite you in now. I kept the cardigan, of course. I wear it on days that tilt toward doubt. I put my granddaughter's collage in a frame. I replaced the drooping office plant with a pothos that has found its way around the window and under the sill, a quiet green map of persistence. People still tell the story wrong. They say I was fired by the CEO's wife and I took all their clients on my way out. That makes it sound like theft. It wasn't theft. It was gravity. A thing falls where it belongs. Sometimes on Sundays, I bake. I take a picture of the cake, always a little lopsided, and send it to the team. Fuel for the week, I type. Someone always writes back with a joke about carbs. Someone else asks for the recipe. I send it, even though I never measure the lemon zest. They know. They've learned my language. On the second anniversary, a florist delivered a single white peony with a card that said, simply onward. No signature. I didn't need one. I put the flower in a bud vase near my computer and opened a new document. A plan for a client whose biggest obstacle was believing they deserved what they had built. If there is an end to this story, it is not a door closing with a tidy click. It is a window open to the sound of ordinary traffic. It is the patient turning of pages in a life that didn't end when a woman wanted to box it up. I was not destroyed. I was not even delayed. I stood up, I walked out, and the thing I carried with me was not a pink folder. It was my name. And that, it turns out, is enough.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.